Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into HIS 240, Kentucky, a land of contrasts from 1865 to 2015. We're going to unpack a wild historical paradox that defined the state's post-Civil War era. It's this fascinating phenomenon where intense economic struggle somehow, paradoxically, fueled an absolute world-class cultural boom. So, how exactly does a state left behind by industrialization become a national cultural powerhouse? That's our central question. Today, we're looking way past the standard dates and names to really explore that tension between Kentucky's stubborn agrarian roots and its explosive cultural exports. Section 1, the monoculture trap. To really grasp this paradox, we've got to look at the soil itself. While the rest of the nation was busy industrializing, Kentucky tied its economic fate tightly to traditional cash crops. You can see a massive shift happen here. Hemp, which was the antebellum king for things like ship rigging, lost its dominance to cheaper materials like jute, so farmers had to pivot. They turned to a highly profitable but incredibly labor-intensive alternative, white burley tobacco. Almost overnight, a fairly diverse agrarian economy became precariously reliant on a single golden leaf. You can actually see this agrarian shift happening in real time in 1931 Woodford County. The fading hemp crop is standing right next to the state's undisputed new agricultural ruler, tobacco. But here's the thing, tying your entire economic survival to one single crop, that is a massive social gamble. And that gamble quickly became a trap. By the late 19th century, massive conglomerates like the American Tobacco Company formed these suffocating monopolies. They drove tobacco prices down by more than 50%, crashing from 13.7 cents a pound down to a devastating 6.6 cents. This meant absolute financial ruin for countless families and eventually ignited the incredibly violent Black Patch War. Farmers found themselves trapped by the exact same crop that was supposed to sustain them. Section 2. Agrarianism as cultural export. Now, here's where the paradox really comes alive. This exact rural isolation and agrarian hardship, it became the very fuel for a boom in American literature. Back in 1892, critics like James Lane Allen were calling the state culturally barren compared to the industrial North. He famously stated Kentucky had little or no literature. Well, he was about to be proven completely wrong. Kentucky writers actually spearheaded a massive movement known as the Southern Literary Renaissance in the 1920s and 30s. Instead of hiding from their rural roots, writers like Elizabeth Maddox Roberts, Harriet Arno, and Jessie Stewart leaned in. They turned the state's supposed backwardness into high art, chronicling the voiceless rural folks, the coal fields, and that really harsh friction between agrarian traditions and modern industry. A perfect case study here is Robert Penn Warren. Growing up in Todd County, he saw the violence of those Black Patch tobacco wars firsthand. And he essentially weaponized that dark, complex history to write absolute masterpieces. I mean, he's still the only writer to win Pulitzer Prizes for both fiction and poetry, and he even served as the nation's first poet laureate. What's more, these folks didn't just write great novels, they fundamentally changed how universities analyze literature. Along with Cleanth Brooks, Warren helped usher in the new criticism framework. They emphasized a really close, analytical reading of texts. So they took this intellectual rigor born from their Kentucky roots and completely reshaped the global academic study of poetry and fiction. We see this incredibly deep connection to the land echoed later by Wendell Berry. He strongly warned against treating farming as just some impersonal, mechanized business. For Berry, the land wasn't just an economy, right? It was a living, breathing culture. As he put it, without history, learning, and a sense of place, we are adrift in the present. It's a powerful reminder of why maintaining a vital sense of place actually matters. Section 3. Sights and Sounds. But it wasn't just literature. The everyday lived experience in Kentucky found its way onto the national stage through sound too. The physical isolation of the mountains actually acted as this incredible cultural incubator, preserving centuries-old folk ballads through folks like Gene Ritchie. And through pioneers like Bill Monroe and Loretta Lynn, those lonesome mountain tunes evolved into massive commercial successes like bluegrass and country music. It essentially became the authentic voice of the working class taking over the nation. And in visual media, the impact was just as staggering. Take a look at the sheer, unparalleled scale of these Babylonian sets from the 1916 epic, Intolerance. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. A Kentuckian, D.W. Griffith, essentially invented the modern feature-length film, pioneering camera movement and editing that we still use today. However, Griffith himself represents a profound historical paradox. He combined this absolutely groundbreaking cinematic genius with the deeply problematic racial prejudices of his era in the Deep South. His films captured both the highest artistic achievements and the starkest, ugliest cultural flaws of his background. Despite all of Griffith's innovations, though, early Hollywood preferred to just freeze Kentucky in time. Instead of showing a modern 20th century state, they leaned heavily into four highly profitable stereotypes: the land of plantations, the land of horse racing, feuds and moonshine, and the pioneer. So the rest of the country eagerly consumed Kentucky's culture, sure, but they wanted it packaged as a nostalgic myth, completely ignoring the complex reality. Section 4. A Land of Contrasts. So as we pull all these themes together, we circle back to the central tension of HIS 240. The big takeaway from this explainer is that economic isolation actually birthed cultural domination. The very factors that trapped Kentucky economically, its stubborn agrarianism, its rural isolation, its resistance to rapid industrialization, those were the exact ingredients that made its culture so unbelievably authentic and exportable. Just as Paul Sawyer's beautiful Impressionist art captured this nostalgic, slower-paced world that was rapidly fading away, Kentucky's greatest minds continually used their complex and often painful heritage as their ultimate creative fuel. The struggle itself was the muse. Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought to chew on for your next seminar. Does a state actually have to be economically left behind to preserve a culture worth exporting? Is economic hardship the necessary price for a rich, enduring cultural legacy? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.